From the vacation capital of the world, it's the Nick Carioti Show.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Nick Carioti Show. We are broadcasting live from Studio A in sunny Central Florida. My name is Nick Carioti, and today we have our holiday season show. So happy holidays to everyone out there, whether you're celebrating Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever it is that you would like to celebrate. We hope you have a good one. Today we'll be discussing some of the more important aspects of that a buyer needs to know when entering into a purchase contract, something we hope that people will be doing now, especially in this market. Once again, you're listening to the Nick Carioti Show, and as promised, we are going to go ahead and talk about the things that buyers should know when entering into a purchase contract. Now, if you've entered into a purchase contract in the past, that's what we're going to talk about today should sound somewhat familiar to you. If not, it should give you some of the basics that you need to be aware of as well. So we're going to start off by talking about the type of contract that we as real estate professionals commonly use. We use what's called a FAR bar contract. Now, this is a contract that is written in conjunction with the Florida Association of Realtors and the Florida Bar Association, thus FAR bar. There is a panel of attorneys who draft these contracts and make them fair for everyone a party to the deal. This is probably one of the most important tools that we as real estate professionals actually have when compared with the type of contracts that most consumers can use and get their hands on, such as an easy form from Office Depot or something like that. The difference is like night and day. Now, our contracts cover every possible dilemma that could occur and provides enormous protection for everyone a party to the deal, not just one side. Now, there are several versions of this contract, but the two particular ones that we often use would be first, the normal purchase and sale contract, and second, the as-is contract. Now, the only significant difference between the two is that the as-is contract has deleted what's called the D and N sections. Now, these are two areas that, if left blank, would require the seller to contribute a total of 3% of the purchase price to repair any damages regarding structural elements or even wood-eating organisms such as termites and things like that. Now, typically on short sales and bank-owned properties, you will see the as-is contract being used. Now, buyers really shouldn't be concerned about the as-is contract. It basically means that if the buyer finds anything at all that they don't like in the home inspection, they can get out of the deal within that inspection contingency period, of course, no questions asked, and they get their deposit back as well. So it really leaves more protection for the buyer, not just the seller. So if the buyer wants out and the seller or lender then wants to negotiate the repairs, they can if they choose. So next, I'd like to talk about the contingencies that a buyer actually has. Now, the buyer typically will have three contingencies. First, we have our financing contingency. Next, there's an inspection contingency. And third, we have the appraisal contingency. Now, years ago in other markets, it would not be uncommon to see contingencies based on the buyer selling his current home before he does anything else or before he closes on this deal. Not something you'd really often see today. Now, when we talk about contingencies, it simply means that the contract is contingent on this item working out, and if not, the buyer can get out of the deal. So these leave certain outs for the buyer and certain protections for the buyer as well. Now, the financing contingency gives the buyer a fair amount of time to get his financing in order. This is usually going to be anywhere from 10 to 15 business days. Weekends and holidays usually don't count in this kind of situation. That might sound like a lot of days, but it really goes by fast. Time is of the essence with everything we do, so buyers really shouldn't hesitate to get this done as quickly as possible. It's extremely important to use a qualified mortgage professional. That's important. The reason why we and everyone I know uses Market Integrity Home Loan is because they're the best, and you're not going to trust your largest purchase to anyone other than the best. So you want to have the right people working around you and handling what's going on. Now, when applying for a loan, you want to be very honest and forthcoming with him, giving all the information for the loan application. This is where we fell into a lot of problems in the past. We had a lot of people and even unscrupulous mortgage professionals in the past that were fudging these documents and just kind of putting down what needed to be seen to get the deal done. These people did get in trouble. A lot of them lost their homes. This is not something we want to see happen ever, especially in this market. But you want to make sure you give all the information. And then, of course, the mortgage professional, he'll run your credit scores. He'll put the package together for the loan processor to go ahead and complete. So they'll do the best with what they have and what you have. If the mortgage loan originator ask you to take care of some credit issues, perhaps, be sure to do it immediately. There might be a couple little things, maybe a small medical bill or something that's just not going to go away. That's something that you might need to take care of if it's small enough and you're able to do that. So you don't want to have the loan process delayed or even blow the purchase because of something like that. Now, next is going to be the inspection contingency. Again, you'll have 10 to 15 days to have all of your inspections done. I highly recommend not to skimp on this. Be sure to choose a very reputable company. The good news is that because of all of our new regulations out there that's happened over the years, all home inspection companies now in the state of Florida must be licensed and are now highly regulated. So it's a whole different deal. It used to be where anyone with a business card that said, "I'm a home inspector," could be a home inspector. And that was a tragedy in our industry because you had people, looking over the most important purchases, the largest purchases we're about to make, and they're not really skilled or trained necessarily. So now they're licensed, they have to know a certain amount, and there's more protection for the buyer as well, because now they're under our normal regulatory bodies such as the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. And depending on the contract used, the seller will be obligated to pay up to a certain amount for repairs as well. Now, or the buyer can pay for the repairs or even walk from the deal. So when something comes up outside of the realm of the DNN rather, or if it is an as-is contract, the buyer can walk for anything at all. But if they'd like to go ahead and negotiate it, or the seller would like to pay for it and the buyer would like that to happen, they can do that as well. So a lot more options, I think, for the buyer. Remember, if the buyer goes past the inspection contingency date without getting out of the deal or presenting the repairs needed, then it'll be assumed that the buyer is satisfied with the inspections, and to get out after that would be a breach of contract. So then we have other remedies for breach and things like that, but that's not what we're looking for. We're hoping to get that deal done and get everything taken care of so the buyer has a beautiful house they're moving into. Now, last is the appraisal contingency. Now, this one here is pretty simple. The lender is going to choose an appraiser from their pool of appraisers. And because of our current market, the appraisal tends to be a little bit on the conservative side, you're going to find. That's what we've seen a lot of. We see that the appraisers don't want to get overboard a little bit. They do tend to be a little bit conservative. That way it kind of gives us a little more protection. But now this means that if it's not as high as the purchase price on the contract, then there are only a few ways in which things can really go. The first thing that happens, the buyer can come out of pocket with the difference between what the bank wants to finance and what the purchase price is. And that might be something that is unlikely because the buyer is not going to want to pay more than what the appraisal says the house is actually worth anyway. So chances are that's not going to happen. Second, the buyer can walk from the deal, of course. That's the contingency itself. So if it does not appraise out and the buyer wants to walk, he can do that. But what we're hoping is that motivation is still high for both buyers and sellers. And third, the seller or lender, depending on the type of sale it is, can reduce the purchase price to match the appraisal. And we often see that sort of thing happening. Obviously, if there's an appraisal done by a licensed registered appraiser that the lender picked himself and it's coming in short, chances are the property is not worth what is dictated on the purchase and sale contract, and they're going to reduce the price of the property. Now, the thing here is that if we are talking about a cash purchase where there's no lender involved and there's nothing to be looked at other than that, well, then we could have a dilemma here as well. We have to be careful because we want to make sure that our buyer is not paying too much, and if we get a situation where they're coming in cash and there's no outside appraisal being done, we may find an appraiser not being so conservative, coming into where the purchase price is if they had a chance to find that out or to see that, and that can cause a distressful situation as well where they're paying too much. So we're trying to protect our buyers or sellers when we're working for them, depending on what's happening there, and this will supply a good amount of information.